Tim, I'm always fascinated by songwriters. I have friends who are songwriters, but I don't write myself, and sometimes I feel like I should because I'm a musician. And sometimes I feel like if it's not there inside, then why force it? So I suppose I would like to ask you about where this song came from and your songwriting process.
Oh gosh. This song's quite different in the process than most songs. I'm quite lucky that from a young age I've never had to try to write a song. There's a constant sort of flow, and I have to keep a valve on it, or everybody else around me in my life gets sort of irritated. So I write every day. It's a happy place for me, you know. So music's sort of like a friend. I think a lot of songwriters would say the same thing. But with this song, I was lying on my back on my bed, and I was strumming the guitar, and I'd been reading about a wonderful campaign that was set up by the United Nations women's group in New York called He for She. And I just started singing that and thought at first, I'll write a song for that. And it's about empowering men to address women's equality rather than just letting all the women do the hard work, you know. And so I became a member of that group. But I thought it wasn't really quite enough, and that's why the song is like he for she and she for he. And then I thought, oh, hello, hang on a minute, you know, there's more than that, isn't there? And that's why it evolved into... And then I stopped writing the song, and I worked with Stephen Fry for the last 3 years on a campaign that we run in London called Save Soho. And I'm always interested in what Stephen has to say, and he does a lot of talks and debates, and I'd saved something on YouTube of his to watch, and it was a speech he gave about how difficult some of the policies of the Catholic Church are for homosexual couples. And it was how, I think the campaign that they were creating was how the church is a force for good in the world, and Stephen decided he would argue against that in the beautiful, charming way that he does. And if you watch the speech that he gave, it moved me to tears. And then, of course, I lay back on the bed and carried on writing the song. And so the song was an amalgamation of, really at the bottom of it is human rights, although I don't see it as a political song. I'm not a political person. It's hard not to be really these days. But it did feel like I was very angry, and then I saw that there were gay concentration camps in Chechnya, and I just couldn't believe it, because I'd grown up with a gay mum, and all my favorite uncles are gay. So it was a world that, as a child, I tried to remember how I felt as a child, and I suddenly realized I didn't look at anybody because of their sexual preference. I just cared whether they loved me or not, because that's all you care about when you're a child. So then that became, for writing the song, the perspective or the character, you know, and you probably read that if you read about Bowie or Kate Bush, you know, it's this wonderful, songwriting's great because you never have to be yourself when you write a song. And I thought, I know, I'm going to be me when I was 8. And that's why it sounds so gentle. But underneath that is the anger that I felt and still feel as an adult. But it seemed like, you know, shouting at Putin or, you know, or the government in Chechnya, getting angry was just would not be a productive or effective way to maybe let them know that they should not have thoughts or control over who gets to be loved and how they get to be loved. And so those are the components of that song, which I have explained before, but it took about 10 minutes to write that song. It was one of the quickest songs I've ever written. It just came out like that, but those were all the things that were in my mind. And yes, if you're a musician, I think you should write, definitely.